Hello everyone, I am Bedtime Stories, and I am here to help you. Today, I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now, get comfortable and relax. Everything was completely normal until last year. We had what felt like a totally typical marriage. I remember the night things started to get weird because it was right after our 5th wedding anniversary. It was a regular day working at the bank when I got a text from my wife. A text from her in the middle of the day was not unusual, but what the text said was definitely not like my wife. Hey babe, I had an idea for something new we could try when you get home. Now, don't get me wrong, I was thrilled to get this text in the middle of my workday. I think any man would be ecstatic at a text like that, but I was having a hard time getting too excited because something about it felt so off. My wife has never been the kind of woman to send a message like this, let alone want to try something new. She is a very shy and to herself woman. The day moved at a snail's pace as I anticipated what my wife had in store for me. I tried not to overhype it in my head. I prepared myself to find a baked good or something when I walked into the house. I fully believed she didn't mean to send a winky face. Not to say I would have been disappointed with whatever she had in store. I'm not much of a wild guy myself, but a little spice never hurt anyone, right? When I pulled into the driveway, I was surprised to see most of the house lights were off. I suspiciously unlocked the front door to see my beautiful wife standing facing away from me in the doorway to the bedroom. My happiness from seeing her quickly grew into confusion when she didn't turn around to look at me when I walked in and said her name. She would normally run up to me and give me a big hug. In the past, my wife has always been the sweetest person I've ever known. For her to not run up and give me a hug and a kiss was strange. I made my way inside after waiting a second, trying to be as loud as possible in the hopes she would suddenly notice I was home and look at me. I got closer and noticed she wasn't moving other than her soft breaths. I was standing right behind her and tapped her on the shoulder. Hey, sweetheart. Are you okay? Right as I got out my words, she jumped around to face me with a giggle and smile. Ha! That was so funny. Did I scare you? She said while covering her mouth in an attempt to hide her toothy laugh. Yeah, I guess you really did scare me, I replied with a nervous chuckle. So, was that your special surprise you talked about? Of course not, silly. That was just the beginning of the fun, she remarked with a smirk and a wink. She grabbed my hand and led me into our bedroom. Under normal circumstances, I would have been over the moon about it. But her scaring me just before leading me into the bedroom felt so off-putting. Did she think this would turn me on somehow? Did one of my buddies reach out to her and tell her to do this? All I knew was that I was not interested in whatever romantic endeavors my wife had planned. I never thought I would say that. As we got to the bed, she pulled back all the covers and told me to lie down. I honestly felt like telling her I had a headache or something, But it was clear she had been thinking about this all day, and I really didn't want to discourage my wife from initiating things in the future. My mind was spinning with thoughts of what she might do next, but she did something I didn't expect. She put the covers back over me and tucked me in. I was both relieved and more confused than ever. She gave me a soft smile, then in one fast motion fell to the ground like a sack of wet hammers. She gave me a soft smile, then in one fast motion fell to the ground like a sack of wet hammers. I intuitively sat up and leaned over the side of the bed to make sure she was okay, and was only met with the ends of her long brown hair peeking out from the bottom of the bed. "Hey, Catelyn, why are you hiding? Can you please come out? I'm not a fan of this game you are playing," I murmured in a tone trying to not sound freaked out. I was only met with the sound of a muffled giggle. I sat in bed for the next 10 minutes trying to tell her to stop. It went from polite asking to begging, but the laughter didn't stop. After my begging didn't seem to work, I got the courage to get out of bed and look beneath me. As soon as I put my foot down, she grabbed my ankle. "What the hell, Catelyn? This isn't funny. You have fun here. I'm sleeping on the couch." I slammed the bedroom door behind me and curled up on the living room couch. I could still hear her laughing from the joke I seemed to miss. It was so hard to sleep that night. The image of her hair barely peeking out from under the mattress really stuck in my head for some reason. It took a while, but I finally fell asleep. The next morning, I was up for work a couple hours before her, so we didn't get the chance to talk. I had to go into the bedroom to get my clothes for work, so I peeked under the bed to check on her. She was sleeping peacefully on her stomach, and I tried not to wake her. It was a long, hard day at work. I wasn't really feeling all that scared anymore, more so worried for my wife. I wasn't sure how I could help. Around 10 a.m., I got a text from her. "Hey Emmett, I'm really sorry about last night. I have a lot of explaining to do once we both get home. Can we talk over some pizza?" I felt so much better after reading those words. It might seem insignificant, but my wife hates pizza, so whenever she is willing to eat it with me, I know she is putting in the effort. It was the end of the day, and I headed home looking forward to some pizza and some time with my hopefully back to normal wife. I walked through the door and was relieved to see my wife setting the table and putting down a pizza box. She heard the door shut and ran to give me a hug and a kiss. I really felt like I had my wife back. "I'm so glad you are home. Sit down, sit down. I got pizza from your favorite place down the road," she said as she pulled a chair out for me to sit down. We were both quiet for a minute or two after we both sat down. I don't think either one of us knew how to start the conversation. Just as I was about to speak up, she started to talk. "So, I know last night was weird. I just got really insecure after hearing a few of my coworkers talk about the things they do with their partners, and I was worried you thought I was too boring. I know I can be shy and don't like to do anything crazy, and started to feel guilty for not doing more with you. I wasn't entirely sure how to even go about it, or what you would like, so I just went for it. I understand now how I went wrong. I'm sorry, I just don't know how to do this kind of thing, she said, as if she had rehearsed it many times in her head. Why would you ever think I was bored of you? I don't need any of that wild stuff. I married you for a reason. You don't need to try to be something you're not. I love you for who you are, I said as I grabbed her hand. She took a deep breath and looked at me with watery eyes. I love you too. Thank you for being so understanding. I really want to make it up to you. That's very kind, but the pizza is enough for me. No, I'm really serious. I did some more research and found a few good ideas, she said as she put her hand on my thigh. I was so torn at that moment. I was terrified from the night before, but it seemed like she learned from her mistakes. Sure, it was an incredibly strange mistake to think scaring me would get me in the mood, but she is extremely sheltered. That's what I was trying to tell myself. I knew deep down something was still wrong, and I should just say no. But I think many people can understand how your body can go on autopilot in moments like this. At this point, nothing was going to stop me, and I'd give every excuse in the book as to why it was okay to let her do her thing. Just like last time I was led to our bed. She made me lay down and immediately put my hands over my head into handcuffs and put a blindfold on me. My heart was racing at this point. I was terrified, but human nature was taking over and it could not be overridden. Right as she put the blindfold on me, she stepped back and I didn't hear her move. I was expecting her to do something to me, but nothing. I laid on the bed feeling more exposed than I ever felt possible. After a couple minutes, I heard the floor squeak, and it confirmed that she had been standing right by the bed the whole time. I felt like I could feel her eyes staring at me. It was practically burning a hole in my skin. I heard the light switch flick off. Now I really couldn't see anything. After a few moments of anticipation, I felt her fingertips graze the sheets near my sides, then by my feet, just barely missing any part of my body. I started to maybe get hope again that I shouldn't be scared. Sure, this wasn't what I had in mind, but she was new to this. I was very wrong. That was the last moment I had hope for my wife. This was teasing. This was torture. I was soon met with the sound of her scraping her fingernails against the walls like a wild animal. She moved around the room, scratching anything she could find, along with a brief giggle here and there. It was like she was silently moving from corner to corner. I would hear her make the awful scraping, then it would stop for a second. Then I would be jump scared by her doing the same thing in a different spot. It made my skin crawl like I had a million little bugs crawling on the inside of my skin. I wiggled violently, trying to get out of the restraints or to get the blindfold off, but I was trapped. It kept getting worse as the night went on. She kept getting right by my ear. Sometimes she would just breathe, and other times she would let out a giggle. She would run her hands closer and closer to my body, sending me into a cold sweat. I, of course, didn't have a way of telling the time, but I would guess it was about an hour in when I stopped begging her to let me go, and I just started yelling for help. I guess she didn't like that because she put duct tape over my mouth. Shortly after that, I started to hear the scraping sound on the ceiling. Our bedroom has an extremely high ceiling, so I had a hard time imagining how she was doing it. I couldn't believe the situation I was in. It felt like a terrible nightmare. I kept thinking any minute I would wake up next to my gorgeous wife sleeping soundly beside me. But the nightmare lived on. My wrists felt raw and bloodied. My neck was sore from moving it back and forth, trying to get the blindfold off. My whole body ached from trying to free myself. But all that paled in comparison to the psychological torture my wife was putting me through. Not being able to see her next move and not knowing how far she was going to go killed me inside. Before I knew it, I was waking up the next day, still tied up and blindfolded like the night before, but I didn't hear my wife around. I didn't let my guard down, however. I knew she could just be waiting for me to relax, then jump out and scare me again. After wiggling my head around for a bit, I finally got the blindfold off. I was honestly scared to open my eyes. I was terrified that my wife would be standing in the corner waiting for me to look at her. Luckily, when I opened my eyes, she was nowhere to be found. But the relief was brief after seeing the aftermath of my bedroom. Nearly every square inch was scratched, even on the 20-foot ceiling above my head. Some of the scratches even had blood in them. As I looked around at my ruined room, I heard my phone buzzing on the bedside table. Either I put it there before getting into bed, or my wife put it there. At this point, it didn't matter, but having my phone near me could be a saving grace. I figured it was my boss calling me since it was 10 a.m. and I wasn't at work. I wasn't sure if my wife had any plans of coming back to get me, but maybe if I didn't show up to work, my boss would get worried about me and come looking for me. I soon had the realization that if they called my emergency contact, it would just be my wife, and I wasn't sure how helpful she'd be at this point. I laid down in my bed the rest of the day, miserable as I watched the hours go by, my stomach growling and my arms were sore from them being above my head for the last 24 hours. It was around 9 p.m. when my phone started getting calls like crazy. I remembered I had plans to get dinner with my brother, and he was probably worried about me. I am not the kind of person to just bail. After a couple hours of calling, I heard a few knocks at the door, followed by my brother's voice. It was muffled, but I could tell he was worried. I heard keys start to wiggly in the doorway. He had a set of keys in case I lost my pair and needed to get in the house. He opened the door and yelled out my name as I tried to be as loud as possible, thrashing my body around as I tried to scream out the duct tape that was nearly off my face. "Emmett, what the hell, dude?" My brother yelled, and he ran to my aid. He immediately ripped the duct tape off my face. "Oh my gosh, thank goodness you are here. Get me out now." "Damn, dude, I didn't think you and Catelyn were down bad like that." "Nice," my brother said with a smirk. "Daniel, this is not the time. Get me out, I said with more aggression. Okay, hang on, he murmured as he tried to get the cuffs off. After trying for a while, we found it impossible to get them off without a key. He ended up just getting my bolt cutters and cut them off. It was nearly midnight when I was finally out. My arms were so sore it took me forever just to get them back down at my sides. So, do you want me to pretend I didn't see any of this or something? Daniel said in a casual tone. What? No, it's not what it looks like. Trust me. I wish it was what it looks like. Catelyn is sick or something. She trapped me here all night and practically tortured me. Look, I know we are close and all, but I don't think I need those kinds of details from my own brother, he remarked with a chuckle. You aren't listening to me. Look at the walls and the ceiling. She did this. She is scaring me. I don't know what to do. He looked around the room and then at the ripped-apart ceiling, not fully grasping the situation, but clearly concerned. Okay, come stay with me tonight if you are freaked out, he said, half annoyed and half worried. I grabbed a few pairs of clothes out of the closet and shoved them in a bag. I wasn't sure how long I was going to be gone, but I wanted to be prepared. My brother only lives a few minutes down the road, so it was an easy drive. The whole time I was worried my wife was going to appear and scare me. We made it inside my brother's house, and he apologized for not having a guest bed. He's in his early 20s and lives alone, so he doesn't have much space. But honestly, I didn't want to be far away from him. I didn't dare to tell my little brother I needed him, and I was scared. But I think he could tell I wasn't okay. Listen, I don't really get what is going on, but it's getting really late, and we both should sleep. Let me know if you need anything, he said as he awkwardly walked into his room 10 feet away from the couch I was lying on. I had a terrible time falling asleep that night. Whenever I closed my eyes, I just heard the sounds of her nails scraping the walls in my head. I kept thinking, and I felt her warm breath against my ear. I'd open up my eyes to find the room empty. It was starting to feel like the anticipation of her was becoming just as bad as her actually torturing me. I woke up the next morning exhausted. My whole body felt like I was just in a car accident from being so tense for so long, and I only got 3 hours of sleep. I realized that if life was still normal, my wife would make me hot tea and a warm bath with all her fancy essential oils that probably do nothing, but she always puts so much love into it. I started to feel myself slip. I felt sadness creeping in, but none of that mattered. I had to go to work. I couldn't have a no-call, no-show and then call out of work the next day. I would feel terrible about it. Plus, I wanted to apologize to my boss in person. The workday started out strange when I tried to ask forgiveness from my boss, but he acted strange at my apology. He explained that my wife gave him a call and said I wasn't feeling well and I would be absent from work that day. I guess despite everything, my wife still didn't want me to get a slap on the wrist at work. That was only the beginning of the strange day. I found a dead rat in my desk drawer, spiders in my locker, and a huge clump of hair in my lunch. It seemed like I was the only employee being harassed, but they ended up closing and sending everyone home at around 3 p.m. because a few higher-ups got nervous and thought they needed to look into it. Banks tend to take stuff like this seriously. I went out to my car to leave for the day and was in shock to find a note on my car. Did that do it for you? Caitlin. I knew it was her. I just didn't want to believe it. The last thing in the world I wanted to do was talk to the woman. I was terrified at this point, but I had to beg her to stop. For some reason, she thought I had some weird kink for being scared. Or maybe she developed one. Regardless, I had to tell her if it didn't stop, I was going to leave her, or even get a restraining order. I didn't want to meet her in person by myself. I didn't know what stunt she would try and pull to convince me to give her one more chance. Since my brother was already partly up to date on the situation, I asked him if he would be there for our meeting. It might be awkward, but I needed him. I didn't want to involve more people than necessary. I texted them both individually and told them to meet me at a coffee shop that night. It was 7 p.m. and my brother was already sitting next to me, waiting for my wife to walk in. As she walked in, it was clear she was putting on an act. She looked overly sad and was dressed in bright clothes that she'd never worn in the past, trying to make herself look innocent. She pulled out a chair and sat down at our table. The air was thick and awkward. Caitlin, I wanted to meet in person and have Daniel here because I need you to know whatever you are pulling here isn't what I want. I'm not enjoying whatever act you are putting on. I'm not turned on. I don't find it sexy. Whatever you want to call it, please stop. If this is something you are into, I think we need to talk to a professional because it's scaring me. I said earnestly as her eyes got watery and Daniel slouched in his chair uncomfortably. I don't know what to say, babe. I have to say I'm confused. I know I'm new to this experimenting thing, but I'm doing my best. This is what you asked of me. I'm just trying to be a good wife. You know me. I'm as vanilla as they come. You are the one who asked me about these acts. I'm just doing my best. She stressed as she fought back tears. Daniel looked at me with confused eyes. Wait, hang on. What's going on? I didn't think you asked for any of this, Emmett. Daniel said. I didn't. I swear. I have no idea what she is talking about. I would never ask anything like that from her. I pleaded to my brother. You are sick, you know that? Why are you doing this to me? She uttered as she pulled out an envelope and tossed it on the table. Daniel and I looked at each other before he reached for it and opened it up. Inside was a letter that Daniel read out loud. Dear Caitlin, I love you with all my heart, but I'm afraid I'm getting bored of the same old. I want something more. I am writing this out as I might feel weird saying it face to face, but I've been thinking about it, and, well, nothing gives me a high quite like when I am scared. And I mean truly terrified. The adrenaline rush is like nothing else. I think if we employ this into our lives, it would really spice things up. In the everyday and in the bedroom. I hope you understand and don't get put off by this, but I really want it. Under no circumstance if I say, stop, should you stop. If I tell you I'm too scared, you know you are doing something right. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Emmett. He lowered the note to look at me, only finding shock on my face. What the hell, dude? Why would you do this to your wife? and get me involved? This is so messed up and gross. Don't get me involved in your sick kinks ever again," he said as he threw the note at me and stormed out of the coffee shop. I begged him not to leave, but he didn't even turn around.